What's going on, everyone? Today we have the RX 9060 XT. This is the gaming OC version of the card by Gigabyte. We'll be pairing it with the 9800 X3D and 32 gigs of RAM. Everything used to create this video is linked in the description below. The only thing I want you to do is just hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into the game. All right, what's going on, everyone? We have the 9060 XT at 4K resolution. We're going to go 4K, 1440, and 1080 on this test, just to show you exactly what you can expect. Right now we have everything set to the high quality preset with high quality settings all throughout. Lumen is maxed out, as well as FSR set to quality. This game does require you to choose some sort of upscaling. There is no native option. So right here we are at 32 FPS. And it's got about a 20 FPS swing, so it does run a little worse up here than when I started this test. But for the most part, you're going to have to use some upscaling if you want to get this to run anywhere close to 60 at 4K. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to come in and show you my settings. So right here we are at 4K. I've disabled the limit. That's why it says custom here. Everything else is set to the exact same thing that you would hit if you were to select the custom preset, because I'll show you real quick. If you go to quality, it's going to limit it to 30, which, I mean, that's fine on this setting because it doesn't really get above that much more than 30. But let's go ahead and set no limit, which switches it to custom Epic Lumen on your indirect lighting and your reflections. That's your ray tracing in Unreal 5. TSR is terrible. Switch it to FSR. So that's what you just saw, these settings. So let's click it back down to balance. Let's just go down a notch and upscale it a little bit more, because at 4K, FSR 4, which is what I'm using here, I have forced the FSR 4 model, and it does run pretty well, and it looks really good up to performance. I would even say that FSR is starting to look just as good as DLSS 4. So the two models are getting really, really good, to the point where I don't even mind that games are forcing you to use upscaling. Of course, I would want more options, but you know, it's not like end of the world scenario to me, because upscaling is just the future. I mean, we can't brute force our way through some of these games at 4K, especially. We're gonna have to use upscaling. So I've just kind of accepted that fact. But yeah, we are at balanced FSR here, and we're looking about 32 FPS. Now, once I get down to this village, kind of down this other hill before that blue truck, it's going to go up a good bit as far as performance goes. And this game does, like I said, have a lot of swing between these settings. It likes to perform pretty well down in the main chunk of the game, which is down in these kind of downtown village areas. So you got a lot of indoor spaces, you've got a lot of you know, kind of alleys and stuff like that. So it does improve significantly down here. As you can see, we are, you know, getting close to 50, just hit 50 FPS there, because obviously you're loading in less assets. You know, when you come out here and look up this mountain, it's going to dip down. So now we're into 40s. So, okay, so let's just keep going and go up to performance and see how well it gives us an uptick there. There is no ultra performance, so there's only 3 levels, and that goes for DLSS and FSR as well. But that gives us 50 FPS right here. So, I mean, you're going to be, you know, like I said, into a swing of about 20 FPS. For the most part, though, the game runs pretty well, and, you know, I'm stretching it out here. This is at 4K, and you probably wouldn't game at 4K on a title like this with a 9060 XT. Now, you know, you could say that this is fine, there's no big deal, 30 FPS is enough for me. And that's fair. It's a slower game. You know, you don't need super high refresh rate, but you know, you do probably want to feel like you're getting your money's worth out of a card. So if I were to play this game, I would probably aim for a 1440p resolution. But for the most part, let's just see what we can do with a little bit of lower settings. So right here, let's go into this preset, go to the balanced preset with FSR set to quality again, and let's go unlimit that frame cap. All right, let it all load in. All right, we're back. All right, so that gives us about 35 FPS in this rougher, slower part here, but it jumps up into the 40s once we get down this hill, and I'm expecting it to probably get up even more because we lowered basically the balanced preset, not balanced upscaling. There's a difference, but balanced preset essentially gets rid of ray trace reflections altogether. It goes to the older screen space reflections, which is noticeably less taxing. But that's essentially what it does. So yeah, we're in the 50s here, a little bit higher than 50. We were around 50 earlier, but that gives us about a 54, 53 FPS. And this is on the quality setting because we were seeing 50s on the performance setting earlier with that higher preset. So let's go to balanced and see what kind of uptick. Okay, so that gives us 60 FPS down here in the kind of better running area, which I've played about 3 or 4 hours of this title. That is pretty much the game. I mean, there's a few like open or more open areas that don't have these like, kind of alleyways and more tight corridors and, less scenery to load, I guess. But the most of the game is in these like, kind of you don't know what's around the corner kind of settings. So to be fair, it is a horror game, so that makes complete sense that they did that. But yet, to be fair, again, it does run really well for the majority of the game. I hate to judge whole games off of a few rough areas, but this game is it runs fairly well, depending on your settings and expectations and stuff. But all right, so let's go to performance. So this is performance FSR, and this is the balanced preset here at 4K. And we are about 57, 61, 62 FPS, looking pretty good. This is a very nice setting because, to be fair, there's not a lot of ray tracing elements in this game. With the ray tracing on, it does tax the system a little bit. And to be fair, it to the card at least, it doesn't really seem to have a huge payoff. So this would potentially be one of these games where I would just get rid of the Lumen altogether. I don't really see a huge need in it. You still have the atmospheric fog and stuff like that, so it doesn't really ruin the mood. But yeah, it definitely can be taxing on a system to keep that Lumen turned on. So what I'm going to do now is just do a little bit more upscaling here at this setting. So we're going to go to Performance Preset and see what this does is it drops your Lumen from epic to high. And of course your screen space reflections are still there, and it lowers everything down to medium, give or take. Let's go up here, FSR quality. Let's turn this limiter off. That's really dumb that they force you to do that. Let everything kind of load back in, and here we are. We are at 55 FPS. And this is the harder section to run. So, we're touching 60. That's a good sign. So it looks like you'll be able to do quality FSR with a performance preset on this card at 4K. Again, this is not a game that you necessarily have to have 60 FPS all of the time to enjoy. I think as long as the frame time graph is flat, that a game like this can be enjoyed without having to have 60 FPS all the time. And that's exactly what you're getting. I mean, this is a pretty smooth running title. A lot of Unreal Engine titles have come out that are, quite frankly, a mess. They're either very, very low frame rates, or they're higher frame rates with just the messiest frame time graph, just full of hangs and jankiness and stuff like that. And this title seems to have none of that. The FPS is fine for the type of game it is, and it's incredibly smooth. I mean, I'm not getting any frame time spikes at all. Everything feels great. All right, so with that out of the way, let's just keep going to the very next level of upscaling. All right, so we're just going to go down to balanced. This is balanced upscaling with performance preset. All right, so this gives you about 60 FPS here. And everything looks pretty good. I mean, nice and responsive. Not that you need the most responsive feeling in the world. I am on a controller, and that is how I would probably recommend playing this game. It just does not require some super snappy mouse and keyboard movements at all. It's just more comfortable on a controller to me. But to each their own. If you are on a mouse and keyboard, no shade at all. I play plenty of mouse and keyboard, but I do swap into controllers for games like this that are a bit slower. So yeah, we're in the very nice plus 60 here for the most part, all over the place. It feels really good. This is, this is kind of a good 4K setting here. You get your FPS up to a nice plus 60. Your 1% lows are, not too much lower than that, so that's a good sign. And everything feels pretty good. Let's go to the very next level of upscaling, though. So let's go to performance. So this is all performance. So performance preset with performance FSR. And to be fair, this is a 9060 XT, and you're asking it to do 4K. So this is not a bad setting at all. The atmosphere is still nice and gloomy. Even the screen space reflections look good. And Lumen set to high is still quite nice. You don't necessarily need to have it on full max all the time. But let's take a look at it without it. All right, so let's turn off the Lumen altogether because that's not something that the preset takes care of. Let's go that Lumen off and then leave it on performance FSR just to get a view of what it would look like. But see, this is what I'm talking about. Without that Lumen, man, there is just no atmosphere. I mean, there's no fog. It looks incredibly flat. This does give you a nice performance uptick. You're well into the 80s, but I mean, look at it. It just doesn't. It does not look good. I mean, it looks like 2005 all over again right here. So I would probably recommend not going this hard. As far as like how you want to play the game is up to you, of course, but it just completely zaps the atmosphere altogether, and that's probably why even the performance preset leaves it in there to some degree, because if we come back in here and just turn on high again, see, it adds that nice fog, and it just adds so much more atmosphere to the game. And I wouldn't want to give that up in a game like this. I want that gloomy feeling. I want that kind of freaky vibe. So the Lumen, at least set to high, does provide that. So let's jump over to 1440 and run through it again and see how we're looking. So I'll be right back. All right, so here we are at 1440p, and we are down in the area that we have kind of discovered is a little bit easier to run. We're at quality preset with a quality FSR. We are at 82 FPS here at 1440. So this is definitely an easier resolution for this card by a long shot. I mean, it's doing really well. This is kind of where I would say that this card is best at for a game like this. You get right around 60 FPS on the completely max settings, and everything looks really good. I'm able to just completely crank it all the way to the max. Use the best FSR method and the highest quality preset. Although in these areas right here, it does kind of drop a little bit lower than I would like to see. I mean, you're at 46, 47 FPS down here in the kind of middle of the mountain area. This game just has a lot of FPS swings. However, the swings don't bother me too much because that frame time graph is just so nice and smooth. It's a really nice running title. So let's jump into the very next level of upscaling. So let's go and see what a balanced upscale will do for us. So right here, we were in the 40s. We're in about 50, 71, 75. So this upscaling looks pretty good. And FSR 4 is really good. Noticeable difference. And, it rivals DLSS now, in my opinion, to the point where both of them are very, very good. I don't feel like AMD is necessarily that far behind anymore when it comes to upscaling. So FSR 4 is no joke. It really is a dramatic improvement over FSR 3. So just keep that in mind. I mean, it's probably hard to suss out some of the older videos that kind of rail against FSR being not as good as DLSS. I know that I've made comments on some of my past videos back when it was FSR 3, because I did feel that FSR 3 was behind DLSS 4 and even DLSS 3. But, right now, FSR 4 and DLSS 4 are pretty much neck and neck. There might be some instances where DLSS 4 still is a little bit better, but not worth a huge consideration with deciding which card to go with versus the other. It's just, they're so close now. So yeah, that's my public endorsement of FSR 4 being just as good as DLSS 4 is now, with a few minor exceptions, but definitely nothing to freak out about or have like some huge worry about, I guess, put it that way. All right, so I'll get off my soapbox with that. But yeah, we're looking pretty good here. Let's jump down to the next level of upscaling. So this would be FSR performance with, of course, everything set to the quality preset. Let's see what kind of uptick this gives us. This gives us mid 80s. And this is kind of like an area that does not run quite as well as it does down there in the bottom near the village. But yeah, we're looking like really, really good here at 1440p. This would be no doubt the resolution that I would probably prefer to play this at. You just get a lot better frames, and not that 4K was necessarily bad. It just required, some pretty hardcore FSR upscaling, as well as dropping the preset down pretty low to get those desired like around 60 FPS frame rate. But yeah, everything looks pretty good though as far as this setting goes. 1440 is noticeably easier to run. 4K still requires it requires a pretty beefy GPU still. But yeah, let's jump into the balanced preset here. Let's come down here, go to the balance preset, and switch this, of course, back over to FSR. TSR is terrible. And then let's uncap that limit. All right, so that gives us 83, 86. So all we really did was got rid of our Lumen reflections. This just switches it to screen space reflections. So for the most part, you're just not going to see that big of a difference going to this balanced preset versus the quality preset, because you still retain the Lumen set to epic on the other setting, which is the name is escaping my brain right now. It's very late when I'm recording these sometimes. All right, indirect lighting, that's what I was trying to say. So indirect lighting is still set to epic. All right, so 80 81 FPS here, just great experience. There's no real reason to go any lower. I do want to show everything as far as how performant this can be, but let's see what the very next levels are. So this was quality. Let's go to balanced. So we're on balanced FSR with a balanced preset, so it gives us about 86 FPS, 81 FPS. Probably down in the village, it's going to touch in the 90s, maybe even over 100 FPS. I mean, there's 90s right there, so that kind of confirms we're going to get to 100 FPS, no problem with this setting. So, if you want to go up on your upscaling a little bit, I mean, really, FSR 4, like I said, does look really, really good now. So I wouldn't be too shy of going down to balanced on 1440 and performance on 4K. You could even go to performance on 1440, with probably a little bit of fuzziness. Not too bad, though. I mean, I am on a very, very small 1440p monitor here. I'm essentially shrinking it down on my 4K monitor so that I don't have to look at a stretched out image. It helps me, give you a little bit better read on what I'm seeing that way. But yeah, I mean, for right now, we're at 94, 95 FPS. Our VRAM is fine. It's been fine this whole time. We're at about 11 gigs. So yeah, this is a good setting as well. There's not really a bad setting in this. It's just kind of depends on what style you're after. So jumping down to performance, we're going to give a nice upscale to it. I do see a tiny bit of fuzziness, just a little bit. Nothing too bad. It might bother some people, but for this title, with the heavy textures that it has and the dark, grungy atmosphere, I feel like that little bit of fuzziness isn't that big of a deal. It's not like a cartoony style game, which is kind of where that fuzziness starts to bother me. Something like Ratchet and Clank would, I don't really like having that fuzziness whenever you're looking for like really clean, crisp lines, which this game just really doesn't have that. It's just part of the design decision of the game. So that really wouldn't bother me too bad. So, I like to take into consideration kind of everything when I do these reviews, not just performance bad, quality good. That's kind of a caveman way to think about it. I like to think about what the game is, the textures of the game. Everything's different, and everybody's got their own personal play style. So One game might be great at performance DLSS or FSR, and one game might look like a fuzzy mess. It just all depends on the art style, really. In the grand scheme of things, that's really what matters. And this game upscales really well due to that art style, I think. So anyway, let's just keep going and see what else we got to go through and cover. So that was performance. So let's go down to the very next preset, which is performance preset. Let's get rid of that limit and then jump back over to FSR, back to quality. All right, here we go. So let's go down here. So we're about 97, 98 FPS, 100 FPS. That was a bad snag right there. However, I did just change settings, and that can happen, so we're going to forgive it. Let's just keep on going. So performance preset drops that lumen to high and on the global illumination, and the reflections, of course, are still screen space, and everything else gets dropped to down a notch, like down to medium. And that gives you a nice performance uptick, even at quality upscaling. All right, so let's just keep on going and get through these. You kind of see where I'm going with this. I mean, this is not a bad running game at all. You don't need a huge, super crazy frame rate at all to enjoy it. Around 50 or 60 is perfectly fine. But, I like to show everybody everything if I can. So it's about 120 FPS or so, depending on where you're at. Drops down about a 20 FPS swing. So if you really wanted to stay above 100 FPS, this would be a way to do it. Yeah, so let's just keep on going before we jump over to 1080, which is probably going to be pretty quick. I mean, that's going to look fine. All right, this is performance. 130 FPS here. 1% lows, though, are about 54. So, those could be better. Okay, there we go. They caught up to it. It heard me and was like, hang on, I'm coming. So, yeah, 95 FPS there on the 1% lows. That's pretty good. And that kind of attributes to having a very good CPU in this machine for gaming. You don't have to, of course, pair this with a 9800 X3D at all. It's pretty overkill, but I don't like to have any sort of bottleneck issues or risks on some of these higher end cards that I have here. So I like to throw the best thing in there with it and just let it rip. All right, so we're going to go with the very next preset, or very next upscaling option here. So let's go to there. Okay, that was the last one. All right, so I'm going to switch over to 1080p, and I will be right back. All right, so here we are at 1080p. We have everything completely maxed out. Quality FSR with the quality preset, and we are at 83 FPS, which is more than enough. And right now, that CPU is definitely coming into play a little bit, keeping those frames nice and high. But again, you don't have to go this hard on a CPU at all. Anything around a 14400K or a 14400, there is no K version, but a 14400, 14500, 14600 would probably be just fine. You don't have to even go in anywhere near this CPU at all and to experience kind of similar performance. And, of course, whatever AMD equivalent that is, 9700X, 9600X, something like that would be just fine. So I like to kind of give you that footnote along with this test that you don't need this type of high-end CPU to go with this card to experience similar frames. But anyway, we are right here at 115 FPS. And everything looks good. I'm just going to run through the main presets on this one. I don't feel the need to go through all of the little intricate things down here because it just runs incredibly well. Let's go to balance, see what that looks like. So this is balance preset with FSR set to quality. I'm just going to make sure that didn't activate that stupid thing it does, this thing. Let's come down here, switch it back from TSR to FSR quality. Okay, there we go. Look at that. All right, much better. 118, 116 FPS. That just gets rid of those gets rid of that lumen reflection and goes to screen space reflection. Runs a little bit better and saves a little tiny bit of VRAM, but nothing too crazy. You can expect nothing but the best performance at 1080p, no problem. It all looks really good. So let's just keep going to performance with a quality upscale. And let's see what we can expect there. So let's go to quality. All right, so once I switch this over to performance, it's going to screw everything up. So let's get rid of that. Let's come back up here, go to FSR quality. Okay, so let's see if we can get close to 200 FPS. I just want to see. All right, so 155, 153 FPS. So if we come down here, yeah, this is a nice fluid experience right here. There's nothing wrong with this at all either. Save a little bit of VRAM, but you know, of course, we got 16 on this card. There's no concern there at all. But 150 FPS here. So if you really wanted to just play this very slow game at very high FPS, here you go. This is how you could do it. If that's your jam, you know, again, no shade. This is fine. I'm just going to go to performance to see if we can really just get this all the way up to something that, you know, people with the high refresh rate desires can expect. So we are at 195 FPS here. Yeah, so this is just kind of wrap the test up as kind of everything that I think people would more than likely want to see on a card like this. If you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing. And yeah, we will see you guys in the very next one. Peace.